welcome to the very first episode of the Doctors Not a Doctor podcast. I'm Dr. Silverstein.
I'm Dr. Armshaw. And today we are going to be inaugurating our fantastic podcast series, you lucky listeners, because we're going to be talking about the upcoming Trump administration.
Wow.
Pause for sound effects.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
I know.
So once again, we are to be blessed with the largest inauguration crowd that's ever has been or ever will be.
Yeah, it will be at least 15 million people on the mall. I have that
they're on the mall,
authority.
climbing up the Washington Monument, tearing it down to build up the next Trump monument.
Well, look, I mean, you can't have a Trump monument if there's already a Washington monument, okay? It would make the Trump monument look small.
Yeah, it would.
Yeah.
And also we need to make sure that it's covered in gold.
Oh, absolutely.
So it's classy.
Absolutely.
Very classy.
Exactly. Yep. Mm-hmm.
Well, obviously we you can tell our feelings on this from the very beginning, but there is some structure to this nonsense. We're going to see.
All right.
We're going to see.
We'll give it a shot.
Yeah, the first question I have for Patrick, that we can bounce back and forth here. That's Dr. Patrick Armshaw.
Yes, thank you.
I'm Dr. Christopher Silverstein. And we should clarify before we get started.
Oh, absolutely. That we are in no way capable of offering medical advice. If you have some horrible growth on the side of your neck, show it to me, but I can't tell you what it means. I'll just go, ew.
And there's no way that I'd want you to show that to me at all. We both have doctorates in politics or political science, depending on where you come from. Mm-hmm. And at least one of us works in the political sphere, although not in the United States, in the United Kingdom.
That's true. And the other of us doesn't use his doctorate for making money at all. So that's a fun story that you will not get to hear today.
So, moving on to the very first topic. The reason that we're recording this today, which is not the 20th of January, but actually January 12th, 2025, was inspired by a phrase that President George W. Bush used at the last inauguration, where he said, quote, "That was some weird shit."
I gotta say, for a man who was known for having just so many quotable lines, I think that's the keeper. That's the one that history is going to remember the most.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. I mean, the people threw shoes at him.
Yep.
Lots of foreign policy disasters.
Yeah. Misunderestimating.
And he is a person who, before Trump, history would have considered him to be one of the worst presidents, and he's had kind of a renaissance.
It's almost like Trump said, "Hold my beer," except I don't think either of them drink. Which is that is the weirdest thing to me. Like, that's
very weird.
Two teetotaling Republican presidents in a row who are both just, maybe they should rethink that. That's all I'm saying. It couldn't get worse.
Once again, the lack of drinking has brought the world to the brink.
Well, exactly, you know?
It never hurts to have just a wee tipple, as they say.
Mm-hmm. Join the inebriati, people.
Join the inebriati.
Link in the description.
Don't forget to hit that like and subscribe button.
Smash that like button.
But Patrick, all right, inauguration. Mm-hmm. Now, it's hard to talk about the inauguration specifically because we've already had so much happen between the election and we are not even at the inauguration yet.
I know, it's like this, and this is my experience of the first Trump administration too, where every week was a year. Like, I think I don't know, it's like this weird kind of temporal stasis. And once again, this last week has been a year because now he's a felon.
Yes, that's correct. So as the President of the United States puts his hand on the Bible or whatever he chooses to take the oath of office to quote unquote uphold the Constitution.
Yeah.
He will have been he is a convicted felon.
Yeah.
Now, obviously, because it's America and we have the imperial presidency.
Indeed.
He did not receive any serious judgment, but he did receive a judgment.
He did receive a judgment, and the judgment was that there would be no punishment at all. Actually, unconditional discharge is the legal phrase. And what it means is that they found that, yes, he absolutely did commit the crime, and yes, he absolutely does deserve punishment, and the amount of punishment he deserves is nothing, but only because he is going to be president.
Yes, that's what I find to be the most concerning, is that the American judicial system basically says if you're the president, then we can't do anything to you because you're above us, which is the antithesis to what the United States was.
Literally the exact opposite of having a republic in the first place.
Yes.
I know this is a little bit of a digression, and we will get back on track, listener. I promise you. But consider the origin of the word republic itself, right? Latin for res publica, which literally means the public thing. Because Romans were really bad at naming things, by the way.
It's an early civilization. But yes, I mean, but bringing us back on track here, in his first inauguration, the phrase "Make America Great Again," as a four-letter political movement, has, it graced his lips many times.
Oh, yeah.
However, given all the things that he said in the interim about invading our allies and placing crippling tariffs on the world, which should, of course, affect the Americans.
Oh, yeah.
What could he possibly say? Remembering that inauguration speeches are, in theory, supposed to be these big inspirational...
Right, bringing the country together. I'm not the, president for my political party. I'm a president for all Americans. And it will, I can promise you, it will be nothing like that. That will not happen.
I don't believe that he has a capacity to talk about... I mean, actually, let me take that back for a second. I believe that he will probably say something like that, but then in the very next breath go into how he's going to start deporting, grandma and grandpa from all the different communities, some of which supported him.
That's a very good point, actually. It might very well be that he says, I'm here for all of you, every last one of you, but also I'm taking your health care and go fuck yourself. He may very well do that.
You sounded more Kennedy, Larry.
Really?
Kennedy there as opposed to...
I gotta work on my...
You gotta be more down here. And I believe that all of you, the small people down there.
You're right. That is very much... That's the better Trump. Okay, that's it. You're the official doctor, not a doctor, Trump impersonator.
Well, that's what I was aiming for. This is the only reason we started this podcast, is so that I can, do these things. But in a serious way, it's interesting because throughout the past couple of months since the election, most of what has come out of his transition team has been nonsense. But then occasionally he will say or put out something or say something that is sounds correct. Like when he's talking about Jimmy Carter or something.
Okay, like which bits would you say?
The bits that the news put out, not the bits on Truth Social, which I'm not a member of.
Yeah, no, that's fair. That's fair because Twitter's bad enough, people. Twitter is bad enough. You don't need a Truth Social as well. Twitter is the new Truth Social. It's got more money, also more bots.
Yeah, but it's dying. I mean, but that's because people have finally decided that, there's no reason to stick around. I assume that there's a lot of people who haven't decided to stick around.
I mean, I do have to wonder what the market niche is. Because if you're going to sell Twitter to people, tabula rasa, right off the bat, they'd never heard of it before, and you said, what if I told you that there's a free website where you can have Nazi robots yell at you all day? Would you say, well, sign me up? That sounds great.
I mean, it just makes sense to want to be part of that crowd.
Well, obviously.
I mean, they're just cool kids.
Who doesn't want to be surrounded by Nazi robots,
Hey, listen, if you're not surrounded by Nazi robots, I don't know what you're doing with your day.
That's a good point. Point. Yeah.
So Nazi robots notwithstanding, I believe that, the...
Botsies! Botsies! It was right there the whole time. Oh.
And that was brought to you by the Doctor's Not a Doctor podcast. So we have Trump standing there in front of Congress, which, of course, 4 years ago he tried to storm.
Yep.
Which was,
always got to return to the scene of the crime. That's what they say about convicted felons.
And that's true. Yeah. As a convicted felon in New York State, he definitely is coming back to the location of the crime. Now, question is, I do have another question. Outside of what's going to be in the speech, which I'm sure is going to just be insanity.
Yeah.
How many people do you think are going to turn up this time?
I don't know, man.
Will we see green grass or the white things they put down on the ground?
No, we totally will. We absolutely will see that. That's going to happen. Because here's the thing, right? I don't think the left is going to be super passionate about getting out there to demonstrate. I don't think we're going to see, at least until he gets in and does something really bad, I don't think you're going to see the counter-mobilization that you saw last time. And on the right, I honestly don't know how many people voted for him out of the belief that he is the God Emperor, versus how many people voted for him because, they just literally hate Democrats specifically and would vote for literally anybody who wasn't a Democrat, basically. Like, yeah. So I feel like the number of people who are really super into Trump, they're there. I don't know how many of them are going to be getting out to the inaugural address. I could be mistaken. I will be very interested to see if I am mistaken on this.
I'd also be surprised if it was an overwhelming turnout, specifically because of two reasons. One, it's Trump, and we know that his core base, who would do anything for him, we know that they would turn out, but we also know that isn't an enormous amount of people. It's not, you know, hundreds of millions.
Exactly.
It will be millions of people who support Trump that way.
Oh, yeah, but how many of them will be able to get to Washington, D.C. for the inauguration? How many of them will be willing to stand out in the cold for multiple hours? You know, probably quite a few, but I don't think it's going to be... I'd be surprised if he hit the numbers that he hit in 2016.
And that would be the other part. It's January.
Yeah.
You know, the inauguration used to be in March. Which makes a little bit more sense, but also made more sense when there were no cars, electricity, or, you know, black people could read and were allowed to be human beings.
Yeah.
But
well, it was a different time.
It was a different time. It was upwards of 30 years ago.
Yeah.
So we are good with history. So, but again, it's cold.
Yeah.
And Trump is famous for rambling.
Yeah.
And if you've ever looked at any of his rallies, specifically the rallies leading up to the election, which, you know, on any other person would have been disqualifying. Just standing there, drifting off, listening to music.
Yeah.
Or just kind of, or his rallies before then, which were just rambling nonsense, which people would just kind of sit there waiting for the top hits. And then just drifting off as he drifted off.
Well, you know, look, man, when you go to see the Rolling Stones, you know, you want to hear the things that you grew up listening to as a child, I assume, if you're a boomer.
We need to update that reference.
I know, right? You're right.
Rolling Stones.
Hot damn.
That was old for us.
That was very old for us. And so, yeah, okay, so like, what are the kids into?
What are the kids into? Ed Sheeran.
Oh, God.
I don't know anything that he's done.
Kids! Get better music.
Yeah. We could easily turn this podcast into Your Music Sucks.
Yeah, but we're not because we're
not 50 yet.
We're professionals.
We're professionals.
And also we're not 50 yet.
And we're not 50 yet.
Yet. But you know, time makes fools of us all. So, but no, like it's, you know, you go to see, fill in the blank with your favorite band, and you want to hear the top songs, and then once they've played it, are you going to stick around for the new album? You're not going to stick around for the new album.
But they don't play too much from the new album. It's normally just look at my wide catalog of songs. Let's say Pearl Jam or. Can we still do Pearl Jam?
No, that's quite old. That's quite old. I would say Taylor Swift, but ain't nobody leaving a Taylor Swift concert early.
I don't think they're allowed.
I think if you tried, every other Swiftie would immediately say heretic, and then that would be the
heresy.
Exactly. All you know, no end of love for Taylor Swift and her fan base. Please don't hurt me.
I met one of them once. It was illuminating. But we will get back to that later. So as far as what's in it, though, I mean, we said that there's going to be weird stuff in it, but let's talk about, do you talk about invading our neighbors? Do you say America's safety is threatened, therefore, you know, one of my first duties will be to ask Congress to declare war on Canada, Mexico, and Denmark?
Oh, no, absolutely not. And I'll tell you why. Because he doesn't need to say America's safety is threatened. What he needs to say is, I want it, and it will be mine. Like, he's not going to run for re-election again. He doesn't have to, like, court the voters. He doesn't need any of the trappings of democracy anymore. So, and this is why he could do things like say, we're going to take the Panama Canal back because China is running it and gets all the freebies, which none of that is true, by the way, like at all. Kind of amazing how untrue all of that is. But it doesn't matter. The point is for him to say, I want it, and I'm going to take it, and I may shoot people to do it. Which is what it means when you refuse to take military action off the table. You're threatening to kill people.
Yeah, you're threatening to go to war and invade other countries. Which makes him sound very Putin-esque.
I mean, yeah, you know, put him in the sauce with the rest of the Putin-esque guy, I guess. You know, that was. I'm going to apologize. That was really bad.
We're not editing that out either.
Damn it!
But I have noticed that, you know, anybody else saying these things, you know, we would be, you know, and I think a lot of countries are, you know, very concerned.
Yeah.
Because you'd be stupid not to be.
I mean, yeah, right.
But this is kind of the same thing, and this is the reason I say you have to make the veil of you know, security risks or whatever because that's what Putin did with Ukraine. He said in his hour-long rambling speech
true, actually.
that Ukraine doesn't exist, and it never existed, and it shouldn't have existed, so I can do what I want in the
Right.
space that you call Ukraine, but I call Russia.
Exactly.
And so I think that...
there was he did put it in terms of like, Russian state security, because, Ukraine was going to join NATO at any moment, even though legally it couldn't. That's a side issue. But, he put it all in terms of, like, Ukraine is threatening Russia, and that's why we have to have this huge border. And if only, the West would finally treat us with respect, then we wouldn't invade. But then invaded anyway.
They invaded anyway.
Yeah, because obviously all of that was ridiculous nonsense.
Yeah, it's like, it's unnecessary. We all know who you are.
Yeah.
But I just find it, that we're not standing at the same amount of attention to when Trump says it.
Yeah.
If Putin was to say, these are the countries that I want to go after. He's openly saying these things.
Yeah.
The world would be very, very, concerned. But Trump saying it, it's the,
Yeah.
president indicates that he might be an expansionist.
It's the weirdest thing. No one can talk clearly about Trump anymore. Like, and this is actually kind of worrying to me. Like, it's seeing the Orwellian doublespeak make its way into, how the media talks about Trump. Where when Trump says, for example, China is now running the Panama Canal, and they're making us pay ridiculous rates, and it's extortion, and they're abusing the gift that we gave to the country. Those words will be reported. The fact that he is talking about territorially expanding the United States will be reported, but it will not be reported that, in fact, everyone pays the same rates at the Panama Canal, and China does not run the Panama Canal, and none of the things he is saying are true. And this is what amazes me, right? Is that if you heard someone saying things that were completely, totally bonkers wrong, on the regular, at some point you would say to yourself, this man is not well.
Yeah.
Yeah. But you can't say that about a guy who's going to be president because, well, presidents have power and they might hurt you. Yeah.
Well, that's the issue here, is that presidents, actually, I think it's another issue with Trump. Is that, the system, the system has basically decided that I don't want him to sound crazy, so we won't let him sound crazy. But if Joe Biden had said a tenth of what he said, if Joe Biden had said the Panama Canal, maybe we should, be charged less for going through it. That's 3 days of his Joe Biden, losing his mind.
Oh, 100%. So yeah.
It's very, that part is equally concerning. So I wonder if we'll see anything about that in the inauguration. I also wonder if we're going to see anything about deportations. I think you'd have to have something about mass deportations in the inauguration.
Yeah, no, he'll be bragging about that. I want to know exactly how many people are currently trying to talk to him and say, okay, but like not my workers, right? Like not my industry, because we voted for you, we gave you a lot of money, and we really don't want you to destroy our industry. So, like, if you're agribusiness, right?
Of course.
Then you rely on immigrant labor, very often undocumented immigrant labor, to for a workforce. The work is hard, the work is low paid, the work is itinerant.
Yeah.
So it's the kind of thing that American citizens just absolutely have no interest in doing.
And British citizens. And, God, people all over the world. I mean, all over the Western world.
Well, yeah.
And to clarify, we live in Britain. We don't live in the United States anymore, but we're both born and bred there.
Yep.
But I saw it on a piece on, I believe, CBS about a farmer from North Dakota, potentially, maybe South Dakota, and he had voted for Trump, and he's like, I just don't think he'll do it. And I think there's a lot of that in America.
I think you're right.
I don't believe that he can be as bad as you're saying.
Well, it's one of the weird things, because he's such a liar, and everyone knows he's a liar. Everyone has just sort of decided that they can pick and choose which bits he means.
Yeah.
And if he says something that they really don't like, they could just say, well, he's lying about that.
Or not even that he's lying. It's just that, he didn't mean that. That's another like get out clause for a lot of the people who believe what Trump says that he will and will not do. Oh, he just didn't mean it like that, and they'll make up some elaborate universe in their mind where Trump is this floating angel, or maybe a god sitting on a golden throne, kept alive by the deaths of 10,000 psychics a day.
That is a Warhammer 40K reference for all of you keeping track out there. We are nerds, and we're proud of it.
We are proud nerds. Yes, but but the point still stands is that, the man says terrifying, awful things, and people still voted for him.
Yeah.
But in the hope that he just won't be that terrible.
Right. That what he'll do is he'll shake things up. He'll burn it to the ground.
But you won't be hurt.
No, exactly, right? Yeah.
But you won't be hurt. That's
Exactly.
the whole thing, is that you're voting for him to hurt and crush other people.
Yes.
But you're going to be immune, even though this farmer in North or South Dakota or whatever had hundreds of farmers who were all illegal, who all had no papers.
Yep.
They didn't have the right to work in the United States of America, yet he hired them and paid them tons of money.
Yep.
And he's like, if this goes through, this is what he said to camera, if this goes through, it was on 60 Minutes.
Okay.
We would run out of food in 2 days. The United States would run out of food in 2 days because there'd just be nobody to pick the food.
Oh, goddamn.
Right?
Yeah.
And yet it didn't waver his support for Trump at all. Now, I wonder even if INS
because it's so absurd. It's so clearly absurd, right?
Yeah.
Like, if you did that, the consequences would be disastrous. So obviously, you won't do it. Right?
Well, that's a big question mark. But also, yes, of course you would, because you want to get those sweet, sweet votes. So, I mean, people need to see those INS vans, in the middle of Chicago and LA, and, thoughts for all people who are going through this horrible fire.
Oh, my God.
Yeah.
And LA currently burning to the ground.
Currently burning to the ground as we're recording, or the areas around LA.
Yep.
I don't know if it's hit the main city yet.
Malibu's getting whacked.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of people who are both very wealthy and a lot of people who are not very wealthy at all, who have just lost just everything in terms of their property.
And this should also be the inauguration. Like, Trump should be declaring, what his administration is going to be doing to help, and they should have already done it. However, what has he said?
Well, what he has said is that he will be withholding all aid to California until they vote his way on a water bill, because Trump thinks that the reason there's been fire is because they're not letting the water in the river go into... They're letting the water in the river go into the ocean, you see, whereas they shouldn't let the water in the river go into the ocean, because instead it should all be taken and something about raking forests. There was something about raking forests. It's hard to keep.
There's also you left too many leaves on the ground in the forest.
Oh yeah.
Which is why the forests are on fire, because forests are famous for having clean, astroturf ground.
Well, 100%.
And robotic animals.
If you have leaves moldering away in your forest ecosystems, then clearly you are just not taking your job seriously.
Where are the people with rakes?
Yeah, exactly.
Who would you get to do this?
Look, Chris, you can laugh all you want, but when it comes down to it, if you allow leaves and dirt to exist in your forest...
This is outrageous.
Exactly. You're just asking for a fire.
I know.
Yeah.
It's just the irresponsibility of the people who own the forest, which at this time were the state or federal governments.
Yep.
So yeah, I mean, the response is kind of indicative of what we've been talking about. But I think it comes down to, this is what I think, to kind of end this section, is I think it's just going to be chaos. It's going to be some ridiculous rhetoric that is, which we will all kind of drift around through.
Yeah.
And then he'll hit some lock her up nonsense or build the wall nonsense, which, by the way, in his last term, he only built, I believe, 5 miles of wall.
Yeah.
Which some of it blew down.
Well, look, he never said he was going to keep the wall up, Chris. He said he was going to build the wall.
Once again.
And once you build it, that's it. It's done. It's like the other buildings that he built when he still did things like build buildings.
Yeah,
Yeah.
We didn't have to pay for them. So that's what I think. I think it's just going to be chaos, and you just hold on until an upcoming point we'll talk about in a second. What do you think is going to happen?
All right. Well, I think he's absolutely going to spend half the time talking about how America is a shithole, and everything is terrible, and crime is through the roof, and the price of bacon. He will mention bacon, Chris. That absolutely is. I will tattoo that on my arm so everyone can see my promise on this, because I know it's going to happen. So he'll talk about how America has gone to hell and everything is horrible. He will make many claims. None of them will be true. And then he will talk about how he is going to single-handedly save everything by deporting all the people who grow the food, and by ending DEI programs, because that's what caused the fire, by the way.
Oh, I remember. Yes, I remember. That's also one of the reasons for the fire is that there are women who are in the fire department.
Yeah, exactly.
So they need to go.
Yep.
So just one addendum there. Actually takes us into the next section. Ooh. First 100 days of Trump presidency. What are we expecting now? My first thought here is the day after the inauguration, New York Times and a bunch of other newspapers will take that little itty bitty part of sanity. We need to unite as a country as the headline with Trump. Standing there.
Yeah.
Hopefully
Trump strikes presidential tone in inaugural address.
Oh yeah, that you could tattoo on. I'll paint it on the wall. I'm not going to tattoo it on my body.
That's fair. That's fair.
But I do believe that's going to be the headlines across America. That a subdued Trump, despite saying mass deportations, invasions, whatever. It'll still be weird shit.
Yeah.
But. Once again, the sane washing will continue because for some reason, well, not for some reason, these companies are owned by billionaires who have knelt down before Trump and unfastened the top button.
I mean, if you're Jeff Bezos, the Washington Post is not where your money comes from. The Washington Post is how you can, influence policy to make more money. The whole point of it is that it's his mouthpiece to allow him to gain extra influence in Washington. So as long as you had Joe Biden in charge, right, then you don't have to worry about fluffing Joe Biden because Joe Biden isn't going to do anything absolutely crazy. Joe Biden's not going to use the power of the federal government to crush businesses that oppose him because Joe Biden is asleep. That's Joe
Biden isn't an authoritarian,
right? Exactly. He's not the guy you lay awake at night fearing. What if it sends the knock on the door? If I were casting someone to play Stalin, it would not be Joe Biden.
Well, fair enough. Thanks for that. Thanks for the vote of confidence for our outgoing president, who we should note, as he has said and other economists have said, is leaving Trump with an excellent economy.
I know.
Now, an excellent economy obviously doesn't always translate into cheaper prices or an ease in a lot of the cost of living, but it slows down the rate of increase, and it's a lot to be left with, and it's a good economy to be left with.
It is, but this is the thing, Chris, is that it's the strongest economy in the developed world. It is the economy that has grown the fastest amongst all the developed economies. It is the economy with the lowest unemployment of the developed economies. It is an economy that has all sorts of problems, but way fewer problems than pretty much everyone else has. So it's like what Churchill is supposed to have said about democracy. Worst form of government, except for all the others.
Yes. So So in that first 100 days, now if you were to ask me a month and a half ago, those first 100 days, I'd say, his cabinet gets approved, no questions asked. Matt Gaetz is Attorney General. The CIA is going to be run by an upturned broom with a hat wearing it. It might as well just have the CIA being run by Putin. Yeah. And now here we are. As we get closer to the election, to the inauguration, we've got the Supreme Court refusing to block the conviction of Trump. We've got the Congress effectively haranguing Matt Gaetz out of office almost instantly.
That was pretty great. That was pretty nice to see, actually.
And I don't know if it's going to happen, but obviously there's a couple of others. The Pete Hegseth, the defense pick, and Tulsi Gabbard, and some of these other people.
Tulsi Gabbard.
Some of these other people who Trump has, or I'm sure it wasn't Trump. I'm sure it was somebody like Bannon or Stephen Miller who said, let's put in these totally cool Amerikanskis into these positions, only to find that not every single member of Congress or even the Republican Party have decided to absolve themselves of their constitutional rights and powers.
I mean, I don't want to put too much hope into that because I do suspect that he's going to get. I mean, everyone he gets through is going to be, for the most part, insane, incompetence, or evil. Yes, trash. To put it in a word, they're going to be trash.
Yeah.
I fear that the reason Matt Gaetz got chucked out was not because he was trash, not even because he was criminal trash. Although, if you believe the House report, the House ethics report on, his behavior of literally paying a woman who was a child to have sex with him repeatedly. Which, by the way, is a crime. Yeah. Like that is a crime. It's no defense against that.
No, there isn't.
And so so it's the funny thing. So I think the reason he didn't get picked, or why he had to resign from consideration, was not because he was trash, but because literally everybody hates him. Like, they were going to vote against him not because he was going to be bad at being Attorney General, but because they hated him and wanted him to suffer.
As evidenced by when the Congress sat for the first time this year, and the note was passed to Congress that he wasn't going to be a Congress member anymore. Everyone applauded.
Yeah.
Everyone from both sides of the House applauded.
I mean,
that's a lot.
It's impressive, right? I mean, Ted Cruz is the most hated man in the Senate, but there's only 100 senators. He only had to piss off 99 other people.
That's true.
Whereas Gates had 434. What with 434? Exactly. I mean, maybe he pissed himself off too. I like to think he does.
I would do if I had the ridiculous, reconstructive facial surgery.
Oh yeah, that much Botox has got to be a little bit like
terrifying.
Terrifying. Yeah, maybe he tries not to look in mirrors.
So I mean, now given that theoretically these are very chaotic days, and it's a very chaotic administration as they were last time. I mean, additionally, remember that how many secretaries of states did we have during the last one? How many Department of Energies do we have? How many, so, I mean, there's already...
Look, I teach math for a living, and I can't count that high.
It is, how many different secretaries of states are on the wall in the embassies around the world. And so that's always a sign of things to come. But you've got... his plans for mass deportations, his plans for his crazy cabinet, his plans for theoretically invading our neighbors.
Yep.
Which that last one is impeachable.
What's the legal theory for that? Give me the theory for it.
Invading our neighbors.
Yeah.
He was not even declaring war on Canada, or let's not say. Did he say he wants to take Canada?
No, he did say that he would not use military force on Canada, specifically Canada.
Yeah.
He did not rule out using military force on Panama or Greenland, or presumably Mexico, whom they're also talking about, bombing.
Let's take Mexico then.
Yeah, let's take Mexico
and say the case for basically starting a war with Mexico. Surely there needs to be a reason for it.
I don't know if that's true legally. I think that should be true.
Well, Congress has to, if we go to the lengths of declaring war on them. But even if we don't go to the lengths of declaring war on them, if you just start bombing Mexico City or bombing Acapulco, or just start, just a bombing campaign across, Juarez.
Well, okay,
what's the there's no defense to that.
Well, there is, okay, so there's the, from what I understand, there is the Gulf of Tonkin resolution, right, which kind of my understanding is Congress passed this at the time of the Gulf of Tonkin, specifically allowing the president to use military force without prior congressional authorization for a period of, I believe, 2 weeks.
Yeah.
And at that point, needs to get a declaration from Congress to authorize the use of military force. Now, obviously, there was the authorization of the use of military force, the AUMF, that was passed after 9/11.
Yeah.
However, I think that has now... I think that's gone into abeyance. But I don't know. Maybe he'll claim this is actually Mexican Al-Qaeda or something like that. He's going to claim.
Well, that's what I mean. The justification for deporting people, that's domestic, and I mean it's also an incredibly bonkers plan that requires incarcerating more people than has ever been incarcerated before. In facilities that don't exist.
Well, it's building concentration camps, filling concentration camps.
Yes.
Having the biggest population transfer since what the frickin' Indian partition, basically.
Yeah. So we're talking about monumental movements of people from groups of people that can barely talk to each other, and then of course we have the chaotic factor of Musk.
Yeah.
How long he'll be allowed in the inner circle? Who knows?
I mean, that's a good question.
But one tweet from Musk, just like we've seen here in the United Kingdom over the past week and a half, 2 weeks, can throw your entire political plans into turmoil because of his uneducated nonsense. But It doesn't matter because he's a billionaire, and billionaires know what they're doing because, if you're so smart, why aren't you rich?
Yeah. To which I, of course, would respond, if you're so rich, why aren't you smart? But that's neither here nor there, really.
As they get into their flying car and zoom away to the floating city of Epsilon 9. So that's the issue. Is like on that first 100 days, the only thing I think they're going to get done is trying to get tax cuts passed for rich people.
Oh yes, yeah. Well, I mean, you've seen what they're already talking about how they're going to pay for it.
I've seen the headlines. Yes.
Yeah, and so Musk, for those of you who don't know, Musk is going to be the head of the Department of Government Efficiency.
Oh, what's it mean? What's it called? Call it in its acronym.
Doge.
Oh, does somebody have a tradable currency on a coin called something called?
It's funny you should mention that, Chris. There
That's
was,
weird.
in fact, a meme coin because we live in hell, where it was called Dogecoin. It was based off of an internet meme.
Dog.
Yeah, of a dog. A really nice
at you.
Shina Ibu.
I don't know.
The cute Japanese dog.
I'm
you know
not
what
a
I'm talking
veterinarian.
about. You've seen it. He's like looking at the camera like, what? And someone had a picture of it, and that's Doge. And then they made Dogecoin. And Elon Musk bought some Dogecoin and then made it seem like he was going to buy more, which jacked the price up as everyone wanted to buy it before he could. And then he was able to sell to them at an inflated price because this is a man for whom market manipulation is effectively Tuesday. That's just sort of like, get up in the morning, do some ketamine.
Allegedly, I'm sure.
No. He's quite open about the ketamine use.
Oh, is he?
Yeah. He says it's medical.
Oh, okay.
Medical ketamine.
Fantastic.
Yeah, I'm sure that
explains.
That is the thing. So
explains a lot.
Exactly.
Okay.
And then. You do some manipulating markets, in between leg lifts and push-ups.
Yeah. And fathering as many children as humanly possible.
Well, that's a different manipulation there, Chris.
Hey.
Yeah, thank you.
We'll get onto that later. But yeah, so what do you think will happen these first 100 days?
I mean, I think, number one, they will absolutely try to pass the tax cuts. They will try to gut as much government spending as they can to pay for it and to pay for tax cuts.
Yeah.
So basically, I think they're absolutely going to try to gut the ACA, also known as Obamacare.
Depending on who you are, you either have Obamacare or the ACA and think that one or the other is going away.
Yeah.
But they're the same thing. So, good luck.
It would have been nice to perhaps tell you all that before the election, but that's why pencils have erasers, I guess.
There it is.
Yeah.
There it is.
Yeah. But yeah, so I think they're going to do that. There's absolutely going to be an attempt to implement. I think probably not officially, but just sort of to unleash the Border Patrol, to unleash local cops and whatnot. Basically, what it's going to be sending out the bat signal, but not for Batman, instead, for racist authoritarians. Just going to send that up, let everyone know it's open season. So I expect there's going to be a lot of people freelancing in terms of enforcing immigration law /
rounding up brown people
/ just beating people in
because
the streets.
Whenever we talk about immigration, always remember we're never talking about the French or the Swedes.
No,
we're not talking about the Germans. We're always talking about the Hondurans. Not even the Irish or the Italians anymore.
Exactly. I know
anymore.
Yep.
So good job, guys. You're off the list. It only took 100 years.
Oh, thank Christ.
So it's always good to remember that, immigration, for some reason, people tend to they like using the word, but in reality, we all know that it means brown people.
Yeah.
Almost always. And no one is fighting to keep the Swedes out of their country. In fact, we want more Swedes.
Exactly. Yeah.
Swedes.
Donald Trump is very clear about that. When he called Haiti a shithole country.
Yeah.
He also talked about why we couldn't have more Norwegians immigrating instead of Haitians.
Actively.
And so, yeah.
Yeah.
So, none of this should be a surprise. We kind of know where this is going. I do think Trump himself is going to be a lot less active in the first 100 days than many people would suspect. I think for him, the purpose of being president is to A, stay out of jail, B, be fancy, to be important, to have everyone love him, and to get vengeance on his enemies. And I don't think he's going to have much call for getting vengeance on his enemies in the first 100 days. He's going to be too busy pretending that he is universally beloved and sort of, trying to make that a vibe. But I do think the people he's going to hire are going to be exceptionally busy trying to get their own plans and schemes going. Because this is, I think, the most important thing to realize. Trump is an old man.
No. He's not an old man. What are you talking about? No, Joe Biden is an old man.
Joe Biden is old as the hills. Joe Biden is more ancient than several triceratopses. Nonetheless, Donald Trump is an old man.
No. I'm sorry. I just can't let that stand. Joe Biden is old. Donald Trump is 16 years old. He will soon be 17 years old. I mean, I know he's not allowed to be president until he's 35, 45. I can't remember.
When has the Constitution mattered to Donald Trump?
Exactly. And the Supreme Court has just allowed him to do whatever the hell he wants.
Exactly, yeah.
So he isn't an old man. He'll be alive long after we're all dead and the earth is dust. And he will just be turning 18 years old.
Wow.
There you go.
That's impressive. I did not know that, and I feel like I've learned something today.
I'm so glad you got to learn something in the Doctors Not Doctors podcast.
Exactly. Well, we do strive.
We do strive
to educate and uplift.
And entertain. Educainment.
Yeah.
Tainment.
Edutuplift.
So this is the issue here. I just want to intersperse there. Like you are saying that Trump is not a young man.
Yeah.
And approaching, and not approaching, is in the depths of being old.
He is, he is.
So, and let's not forget that, like I said earlier, he spent how many weeks just off the campaign trail?
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
So the first 100 days, he might just be asleep.
I mean, he's got to recharge his batteries, Yeah. I mean, yeah.
From all that he's been doing recently, which is apparently just being inside Mar-a-Lago.
Yeah.
And going to bad buffets and banquets.
Yeah.
Did you see his Thanksgiving thing?
I did.
The sad plate of Thanksgiving food.
Like, I'm going to say this. I don't think Donald Trump enjoys food. No. Like, I don't think he's definitely not a gourmand or whatever, but I also think he's someone for whom, I'm not going to be a jerk here. I mean, I'm not going to lie. I've eaten a lot of McDonald's in my life.
Fair enough.
But, and I've had some McDonald's food that I thought was, good, tasty. Certainly that, hit the spot.
Quarter pound of cheese.
Oh, my God.
Delicious.
Yeah, you can't go better.
Yeah, large fries.
But
the old high C orange.
Oh.
Amazing.
Yeah. Oh. Yeah, pour one out.
I know.
But yeah, so I don't think Donald Trump even enjoys that. I don't think he's someone for whom there's joy, really. I've never seen him laugh. Have you ever seen him laugh?
I've seen him chuckle.
Really?
Yeah. But not a lot.
I have difficulty imagining him even chuckling, without a puppy being injured somewhere. I could see it then. Is all I'm saying.
But the first 100 days to bring us back into the room, as opposed to the depths of the forest that you.
Yeah, let's get out of that pit of despair, shall we?
Yeah,
that is the Mar-a-Lago Thanksgiving dinner.
Oh.
I think there's a very famous phrase that's sort of been used to describe how the Nazi regime worked, basically. And it was working towards the Fuhrer. The idea being that the Nazis, far from being this highly regimented, highly organized group of Prussian bots or whatever, instead were just chaotic nutcases, most of them actively fighting everyone else in the regime, everyone trying to get in the right position, everyone trying to get their scheme over somebody else's scheme,
right.
Everyone constantly fighting over terrain. And so what you would do in that kind of scenario to win is to think of something that the Fuhrer probably wants and then present it to him so he could claim it was his idea. So Hitler didn't need to sort of say, okay, here's the plan, everyone. Here's what you're going to do. You're going to do this. You're going to do this. Instead, Hitler would sleep until 2:00 in the afternoon, get up, do some barbiturates, probably scream
allegedly.
At the wall somewhere. Actually, I think we could say with historical certainty. Oh no, that man he had a lot of drugs coursing through him.
Yeah.
On a regular basis.
Yeah.
His doctor was a quack.
Yeah.
So
up to the eyeballs.
Oh my God. Yeah, just so much amphetamine. But yeah, so for him, he wasn't a details guy. Their Fuhrer. So and I suspect something similar in that sense, and not in the launching world wars and murdering millions and millions of people since. Knock on wood. Thank you. That I think something similar will happen with the Trump White House. I don't think he's going to be in charge. I don't think he's going to be, directing everybody. I think he's going to be accepting the offers of his underlings as they come to him and say, here's a good idea. President. Here's a thing that I have done for you, and it's your idea. You inspired
Like
me.
in the Simpsons movie where they put the dome over Springfield, and the guy comes in and he hands the president, who was Rainer Wolfcastle, he hands the three options.
Yeah.
And he's just like...
The people elected a leader, not a reader.
And he's like, here's option 1, 2, 3. He's like, option 1, no, 1 higher, 3, 1 lower, 2... Genius choice, sir. Genius choice. Yeah, well, maybe that's the way things will be. And then when things go tits up, then he can then fire that person and find someone else. How long is? We could go on this for a long time.
Yeah.
But we don't want to keep talking at you for forever. It's only been 6 to 7 days at this point.
Exactly.
So, we've talked a lot about Trump because he's going to be inexplicably the president again.
Yep.
And we all have to hold on to our loved ones, and for that one.
Yeah.
But what should the Democrats be doing now? So let's just recap here. The Democrats have, as far as I could tell, and if I was talking to them, have fumbled the ball massively over the past 10 years.
Yeah, pretty consistently.
With every major election, with the exception of 2020. Obviously, with the exception of 2020. Obviously there was extenuating circumstances in 2020 with coronavirus.
There was.
People had, they had the risk right in front of them, and the obvious mismanagement of government from the very, very top.
And it had been 4 years of Trump, and
we had 4 years of Trump.
Yeah, and I think honestly, I will be honest with you. I think one of the reasons why the Democrats lost this last election was that the COVID pandemic was so big and so awful for so many people that what came before it could not help but look better by comparison. It's hard. It's almost hard to see on the other edge of that chasm that ripped its way through our collective consciousness. To really remember what life was like under the first 3 years of Trump. You didn't have to wear a mask. You didn't have people really angry that they had to wear a mask. You didn't have people trying to overthrow the government. You didn't have furloughs and stay-at-home orders. And in comparison to living through all of that, right? Mm-hmm. You had, mostly the economy was growing. Mostly all the stuff that Trump was doing was hurting people you didn't know.
Yeah.
For the most part, it was something that, most people could be okay with. In the 2020 election, that's right in the middle of the COVID pandemic. And I think for that reason, there was very much a throw the bums out mentality. 4 years later, we still remember COVID. We remember how awful it was. We just don't remember how bad it was before that either. Yeah. And so...
And I could talk more about that, but I want to just get on to what do the Democrats do? Now, that's why I was saying that, in 2016, they, for whatever reasons, they didn't understand what the hell was going on. Yep. In 2024, they had this nonsense of, getting rid of Joe Biden in the middle of the election. Whether you liked him or you don't like him, or you think he was too old, not too old, basically to change captains effectively that late stage in the game.
It's the kind of thing you only do if you think there's literally no other choice. And it absolutely sends a signal that says, we should not have been in this position to start with, Saw's guys.
Yeah. And also, I've seen research online, people seem reputable, that, it was definitely the reason why Trump won was not because more Trump people came to him.
Yeah.
It was that the 20 million people who voted for Joe Biden stayed home.
Yeah. No, I think that's quite clear, actually.
So over the next 18 months, really, until the next congressional elections, what do you think they have to do to not get routed again? Now, remember, in 2018, the Democrats were able to win one house. I'm sorry, I'm blanking.
I think
it was the House of Representatives.
It was the House of Representatives. Yeah, that's
right.
right.
That's why we had all the impeachments.
Yeah.
And then but they couldn't win.
Wait,
the Senate.
no. It was both houses of Congress actually. I think that's actually what happened. Because,
we won both.
Because the reason why he didn't get convicted in the
50-50.
Senate. Exactly.
Yes.
Exactly. So it was. The thing is, I think the Democrats have benefited from. Well, the fact that more people tend to favor the Democratic Party than the Republican Party, and the country as a whole, as long as you could get enough people out to vote, then that was going to tell. Trump in 2024 has won a plurality of the popular vote. For the second time, a Republican has done that since the end of the Bush-Reagan years. So, since 1988.
Yeah.
George W. Bush very famously did not win a plurality of the popular vote in 2000.
Yeah.
He did manage to do it in 2004.
Yes.
And that was the last time a Republican got a plurality of the popular vote until 2024. So it was literally... Is that actually 20 years?
Yeah.
Oh
It's
my
actually 20
God.
years. Now, why do you say plurality here?
Yeah. Well, plurality is the fancy word we use for getting more votes than anybody else, but not a majority.
There it is.
Majority is more than everybody else combined. In other words, 50% plus one. And that, George W. Bush got a majority in 2004, barely,
right.
About 51% of the vote.
Yeah.
He's basically it. Like the Republicans have never gotten to that. Trump came close in 2024. I think he got 49.97%, something like that. But not a majority.
Yeah, we'd have to look up. I'd have to look up. I thought it was 48%, but it could be 40.
Oh, really?
I thought it was 48, 47 or something.
Oh, fair enough, actually.
But it could be 48, 49.
Well, listen, the votes have been coming in for a while, and I did not look at that. I did not look at that most recently. So if you looked at it more recently than I suspect you have.
But the question is still, what do they need to do? And in that now, because of course, if we can get a Democratic-controlled Congress, that will put massive buffers on what the damage that Trump can do in the end of the 2 years.
Yes.
It would also make sure that if he tries to do anything like prevent elections or tries to use the power that the Supreme Court has granted to the president to do whatever the hell they want, including murdering their political opponents, look it up, that's a real thing. The only real stop on that that the Supreme Court or these Trump's lawyers are arguing was that Congress could impeach the president.
Yeah.
So if I was a Democrats right now, first off, I'd be putting all my money into Matt Gaetz' seat to try to get somebody there to take it over, get people out to vote and say, hey, listen, we're only 1 or 2 votes away from controlling the House of Representatives. Yeah. This could be one of
We could put a check on the crazy.
We could put a check on the crazy. We could protect you, get the left out there to vote for us.
Yeah.
Or even because obviously appealing to the right has now officially
that's been
failed.
tried.
It's
it has
now
been
officially
tried and
failed.
found wanting.
It's beyond wanting.
Yeah,
it's far beyond wanting now. They did everything, and I thought, hey, if this is the time to get the Never Trumpers involved, and they're just obviously not enough of them. But more importantly, the left opposed
a lot of the left stayed home.
And they just stayed at home because I'm not going to be on the same side as Liz and Dick Cheney, which is insane for the left to be that obstinate. But there's no reason why the Democrats can't appeal to more left wing policies. Yeah, in
order to try to reclaim some of those votes. But this is my fear here, is that we're talking about what the Democrats should do, but then we have to counterpoise that against what the Democrats will do. My worry is that because so much of the left stayed home in 2024, a message has been sent, and the message that will be understood is not the same as the message that was sent. Voters who stayed home in order to send a message did so to say, we want more left-wing policies. We want, a stronger fight. We want a more clear way that you're going to make America better for the rest of us, right? And not just for the wealthy, not just for, not just keeping things as they are, which is never a good message to send in American politics. No. Americans hate American politics. They hate American politicians. They hate the system. Americans are pretty fed up with all of it because it has not really delivered on a lot of the things that a lot of people care about for decades.
Well, but that also can be down to the fact that at least a third of Americans don't vote.
Well, that's true.
So
that's true.
It's the catch-22 of voting. If you do vote, then people have to listen to you because you are that constituency, which is why we have, the great representation for certain, religious communities or certain
Indeed.
Age communities. I mean, AARP was a, massive threat for lots of politicians.
No, there's a reason why we still have Social Security in America, and a lot of it comes down to the AARP mobilizing its millions of members to make their voices heard, and those voices mattered because they vote.
Yeah.
And that's why I fear that the message the Democrats will be taking from this is, well, the left doesn't vote, so we can't be held hostage then because we don't know what's going to pay off. So therefore, we should move further to the right and just try to get a majority of the more right-leaning votes that actually is going to show up for the election.
Which is theoretically a massively failing argument.
Oh, yeah.
As we've seen, let's say in the UK, right?
Yeah.
So, as I said, we both live in the UK, and we just had an election here where ostensibly the left has won. But how did they win? They won by jumping into the center-right area, where the Conservative Party has, which was, a moderate, 20 years ago.
Was the center-right party.
Mm-hmm. And then they jumped into the far right area, and leaving this big open space for the center right, where the Labour Party now exists. And then there's a big space for the left, but they only won 34% of the vote, and because of a fluke of the British system, they were able to get hundreds of seats in the House of Commons, 60-70% of the
seriously, right?
400 out of 600,
one of the biggest stalking majorities,
50 seats.
That and it's all on the basis of a third of the vote. So if you have any questions as to how the hell that's even possible, we could have a whole
We
episode.
should probably talk about that next time.
Yeah, exactly. We're gonna let you guys know. Next time we'll be talking about why two-party systems happen, what on earth is going on with first past the post, and why proportional representation may not be a perfect solution to those problems, but definitely,
just like democracy, it's the worst system they have, except for all the others. So listen, if you're still here at the end, we thank you for listening to us.
Thank you for giving us your time.
I hope that we've been fun on your walk or run or drive or whatever you have, and hopefully you'll be hearing from us again relatively soon.
So until then, I'm Dr. Armshaw.
And I'm Dr. Silverstein.
And we are doctors.
But not doctors.
Good night.